I was at a group experience and someone said, do you have any experiences where you've used your purpose and you've turned your pain into your purpose, basically? I was a theater student trying to learn how to survive in New York City and earn a living. And I just realized that this practitioner, he was different than anyone else I'd ever met. He sat with me for 90 minutes. He explained how my gut was connected to my thyroid, which I'm happy to share.
Can you please explain to us the relationship between our gut and this thyroid?
In order for us to think about it from that context and how it relates to the gut, we need to understand the theory that in order for an autoimmune disease to develop at all, there is a theory that there are three pieces of the pie. Number one is...
Hey, I'm so glad you're here today. We created this podcast for one reason and one reason only, to help you level up and raise your standards in every aspect of your life. Your standards around the food you eat, the people you surround yourself with, and the way you manage stress, and the way you sleep, move, think, and show up in your life. We're living in a time where digestive issues, burnout, and chronic symptoms are exploding, mainly because our lifestyle is out of alignment. We're rushing, we're stressed, we're even eating distracted, and mostly because we're living in this fight or fight instead of a rest and digest. So we built this platform to speak with some of the world's greatest gut experts to bring you the tools, the science, and the perspective you need to level up. So if you're ready to become the strongest, healthiest, and most intentional version of yourself, subscribe, join us, and let's raise the bar together. Without further ado, let's hop into the episode. Hello, everyone. Welcome to another amazing conversation on the BioBelly Show. Today, we're joined by Sophie Shepherd, a functional health practitioner and mineral and HTMA specialist who focuses on helping women uncover the deeper root causes behind issues like thyroid dysfunction, hormone imbalance, chronic fatigue, and metabolic stress. Through tools like the hair tissue mineral analysis, Sophie helps people understand how their mineral balance, detox pathways, and nervous system regulation influence everything from thyroid health to energy, mood, and resilience. It's exciting that she's also the host of the She Talks Health podcast, where she explores the intersection of functional health, metabolism, and women's health, effectively helping people, women especially, beyond symptom management, and to help them start understand the underlying pattern driving their health. Overall, Sophie is super passionate about helping women reconnect with their bodies, rebuild foundational health, and feel like themselves again. So, Sophie, thank you so much for your time. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. Yeah, thanks for having me. It's always interesting to sit here and listen to the introduction. I'm like, yeah, I did do all of that. It's really fun.
Love it.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
100%. Absolutely. Sophie, it's a pleasure is all mine. Sophie, if we can start off, I'd love to learn a little bit about your story and your journey of what got you into learning about health, specifically gut health, and how how struggles in your life may have transformed into a labor of love for helping others.
Yeah, I was just recently asked, I was at a group experience and someone said, do you have any experiences where you've used your purpose and you've turned your pain into your purpose, basically? And I just burst into tears because I was like, this has been my whole journey.
Right.
So I'm 36 today, and I was 16 when I was going through my first colonoscopy, my first endoscopy. I had a series of gut issues start when I was about 12 after drinking water in Mexico, actually. Got very, very sick, and then my gut really never recovered. And so by the time I was 16, drinking water, eating food was extremely painful. I was bowled over in pain. I had acid reflux. I had bloat. I had gas. I had diarrhea 7 to 10 times a day. I mean, I was really a hot mess in high school. And so I went to the doctor. He told me, it's just IBS, which on my podcast, I say, just remove the I and you have your diagnosis. Because it really doesn't help. He told me to take a proton pump inhibitor, which he unfortunately didn't tell me to stop that after 7 weeks. So I took it for 7 years, we can get into why that's problematic. And I just went on my way thinking I have to trust the doctor. This is what he said, to do. Well, several years later, through a series of other triggers and stressors with emotional abuse, with not eating a healthy whole foods diet, through not eating a lot of like food at all, to like staying up late, like all these kind of environmental and personal emotional triggers, I ended up being diagnosed with Hashimoto's, which is an autoimmune disease of the thyroid, which is closely linked to the gut, which I think is like our main topic for today. And it was like pretty horrific. I was losing my hair. I was 40 pounds heavier than I am today. I was dealing with massive brain fog and exhaustion. Like, sleeping 12 hours but not feeling like you slept is just the worst. It's horrible. And then a lot of mood related issues, because we know the gut and the brain are often connected. And so many people who suffer with IBS also suffer with anxiety or depression. So I was medicated for birth control. I was medicated for my thyroid. I was medicated for my mood, but no one was actually looking under the hood. And when I asked for help, I was met with a lot of gaslighting, a lot of like, just take this antacid, just take this pill basically, or like, there's nothing more I can do for you, or this is just the way your life is. And so I fired my doctor when I was 22, and I found a functional medicine doctor. This is before it was popular, before people even knew what that was. My parents were like, okay, you're doing what with food? I don't know. No one got it. I was a theater student. I just graduated from college, actually. So I was a fresh theater, fresh, bushy-eyed theater professional trying to learn how to survive in New York City and earn a living. And I just realized that this practitioner, he was different than anyone else I'd ever met. He sat with me for 90 minutes. He explained how my gut was connected to my thyroid, which I am happy to share abundantly on this podcast today. And he helped me connect the dots. And he said, if you heal your gut, you'll heal your thyroid, and I can help you. And so I put his program on a credit card and like crossed my fingers and was like, this feels right. And within weeks, I started feeling better. And within months, I had really totally healed. And several years later, realized that this was a profession and I was not the only one in the world dealing with this. And in fact, millions of people are dealing with this all over the world. And many, many more women than men are dealing with this issue. And so I got to work and got trained up and have continued to learn and continue to be educated in all the best ways to support my clients. And now we've helped over 600 women with their health and well-being. And it's been just my soul's purpose.
I love it, Sophie. It's so inspiring. I'd love to kick it off with learning a little bit because, and as you know, if you were to speak with your 22-year-old who just fired her doctor um, or healthcare practitioner, at that time when you are just inundated with all these issues, sometimes we just don't understand what's going on. That's the biggest thing, right? We just need a functional doctor that spends 90 minutes with us to shed light on those issues. I was wondering if we can identify basic definitions first. What exactly does the thyroid do in our body?
The thyroid is our master metabolism hormone. So think about everything that requires energy, hair growth, our temperature regulation, even our cycles to a certain degree are influenced by our thyroid, our weight regulation, our mood, even how quickly or how slowly our liver and our gut function. And this is why it's so multi-system problematic for people, and why people kind of, jump around. They go to like the GI doctor, and then they go to the OBGYN, and then they go to this, the dermatologist for their hair. And like, they're kind of confused. And I call it playing whack-a-mole with your thyroid health. It's like, you're trying, oh, this is an issue. Okay, smack that down. Oh, this is an issue. I'm going to smack this down. And no one's talking to them about how it's all connected. But that is one of the most important things, is that the thyroid is responsible for so many aspects of our metabolic health.
Got it. Interesting. And when we do look at, and as you were saying, it is multifactorial, right? Like there are a lot of moving parts here. Now I know like the main focal point is usually like our gut and how things interact with our gut. Can you please explain to us the relationship between our gut and this thyroid?
Yes. So there is research to suggest that let me back up. Hashimoto's is an autoimmune disease that causes hypothyroidism in like about 90% of cases in the United States. In other countries, it can be from other causes, but in the United States, that is most likely the cause. So if you have hypothyroid, which is like when your thyroid slows down and you're dealing with those symptoms that I mentioned earlier that I was going through, it's likely that there's an autoimmune component part of it. Not for sure, but that's why we test, right? We don't guess. So it is an immune system dysregulation issue. And so in order for us to think about it from that context and how it relates to the gut, we need to understand the theory that in order for an autoimmune disease to develop at all, there is a theory that there are three pieces of the pie. Number one is genetic predisposition, but we know that genetics don't always fire, right? We know about epigenetics and that we have control about 90% of the time of how our genes are expressed, but there can be a predisposition genetically. That's number one. Number two is there's typically a stressor or a trigger to why we develop autoimmunity. And number three is that there is a leaky gut. And so that's the piece that I want to talk about in terms of how it's connected. So a leaky gut is kind of slang for intestinal hyperpermeability. So the gut is permeable to some degree, but we don't want it to be hyperpermeable. We don't want it to be like, think about a hose that has a bunch of holes in it. We don't want that, right? It's going to make the hose, the water not go through very efficiently. It's going to be leaking. So what happens when we have a leaky gut and how this relates to like the gut and the thyroid and autoimmunity is that we have a lining in our gut that is very thin. It's one cell thick, okay? And so when that becomes breached, anything that we eat, anything we come in contact with, any sort of allergen or antigen, that's going to leak through that lining, okay? And when that happens, the immune system can start to freak out. So whether that's undigested food, bacteria, toxins, whatever it is, we are breaching the outside world with our inside world. And we don't want that. We don't want any exposure to the immune system there because that overactivates the immune system and the immune system starts to try to attack and do its job, right? It's trying to do its job to protect you, but it's getting essentially overstimulated and overreactive. And so when we see that, sometimes what it can lead to is food sensitivities, mood-related issues, systemic inflammation, and of course, autoimmunity. So that's like one of the main ways that leaky or the gut is connected to thyroid conditions, leaky gut, but there's also a bunch of other ways like that we can talk about within certain infections that are really important to mention.
Super interesting. And I love how you said, like, we test it, we don't guess, right? When we are talking about those HTML panels, what are we looking at to see, like, because I know as a care provider, you are looking at all these different types of moving parts within within the results of like the hair tissue mineral analysis. What are the things that you are like keeping an eye out for to see, or okay, what are the things you are looking at in the hair tissue mineral analysis to get a better idea as to what's the root cause of this issue?
Well, I think, let me back up. So HTMA, hair tissue mineral analysis, is one test that I run, but I actually run many, many tests. So we can run food sensitivity, we can run hormones, we run blood work, we can run gut testing. For someone with Hashimoto's and a gut issues, what I like to run is the GI map stool analysis. And then I also love always to run the HTMA. It is a foundational test. And then if there's the ability to run a full thyroid panel and blood work, that is also very helpful. So there's different pieces here. I'll kind of do maybe like a broader, and then we can kind of go into whichever direction you want. But when it comes to thyroid issues and gut issues and how they're connected and like what this tests help us is like, I'm always as a detective of health looking for like, what are those root causes? And so with thyroid issues, we often know that the root is in the gut. So with a GI map, what we're looking at is, does this person have parasites? We know blastocystis hominis, for example, is a parasite that can drive autoimmunity, can really be inflammatory for the body. We know that someone could be dealing with Candida, so yeast, and the GI map screens for that. Is Candida and yeast causing issues with thyroid hormone conversion? Does this person have H. pylori, which destroys stomach acid, drives leaky gut, and is linked to thyroid issues as well? So what are some of the infections going on in the gut? Does this person have a leaky gut? We can add a marker called zonulin to a GI map and see like, how leaky is this gut? Is it in the red? Is it, green? What do we need to do to repair the lining? and what are these infections that are present. And then the other piece of this test that's really helpful is it looks at digestion and immune function. So if we see the immune function is like off the charts, it's like really high, we can see there's something bothering the gut that's triggering this immune reactivity. And it's likely some of those other things we see in the test, like Candida, bacteria, H. pylori, parasites. So when I look at that test, I'm looking for like, what are the insults or like reasons that the immune system's overactive? And then how can I help this person have a customized protocol to remove anything that shouldn't be there while simultaneously adding in all the beneficial bacteria, right? Because that's a whole other piece of the gut that we need to talk about, because that's really important. And also restore that lining, that breach that maybe has been breached because there's so many overgrowths. So that's kind of like the GI test and like why that's so important.
Gotcha.
And then the HTMA, what I'm looking for there as far as root causes is like, and this is for the gut and also for thyroid, is our whole body runs on minerals. And I wish people could understand this. I will die on this hill. If you think about what goes into, for example, you digesting your food and secreting stomach acid, well, guess what you need for that? So you need potassium, you need zinc, you need minerals to build that stomach acid up. So we're trying to optimize gut health, but we're not thinking about the raw materials that go into actually creating a healthy gut environment. So that's just like one example, right? And then for thyroid with HTMA, hair tissue mineral analysis, is because we're looking at all these minerals and the ratios and how they're all related. The thyroid is a nutrient hog. It needs selenium, it needs zinc, it needs iron, it needs magnesium, it needs a ton of nutrients and iodine. There's so many. And so we can assess like, oh, you have low thyroid function and your selenium's really low. Okay, well, we need to support selenium, right? And be very specific. So when I think about thyroid and I think about gut, I'm like, okay, what are the like few levers that I can pull here that will really help someone to feel better as quickly as possible? And that is restore the gut lining, kick out the bad guys, re-inoculate the good bacteria, and then get their body nourished. They need nourishment. And that's how we do that with the mineral test.
Love it. And when we do say, I love this amazing process you have, Sophie, of understanding what are like the mineral deficiencies we currently have. What are the things we can start introducing more of, whether it's selenium, whether it's other minerals, but also this idea of these healthy bugs, right? The healthy bacteria, the probiotics. I was wondering for in this phase of your healing roadmap with clients, are you introducing more of like a diet plan along with like a supplement plan? How does that work?
Yeah, so when someone comes in, I have a program called She Thrives, Thyroid Freedom. And you can join if you don't have a thyroid issue. It's really women's health, like fertility, hormones, gut. And so when I first meet with them, I ask them to do a nutritional kind of assessment. And so I ask them to track their food for a few days. They don't have to macro track if they don't want to, but they can. I am trained in macros. So if they want to weigh and measure their food so I can really get precise, I'm happy to do that. But even just journaling about their food, like what are they currently eating? And then I will do a roadmap from the first call, whether that's in my group program or my one-to-one. We have in the group, it's actually kind of a hybrid. So they have that one-to-one kickoff call with me where I give them that roadmap. And I'm like, hey, you're eating X, you're sleeping Y, you're moving this way, you're dealing with these symptoms. This is what's going on over here. And I have them do this whole clinical intake. And then I'm like, here are like the 3 to 5 areas that we need to focus on. And oftentimes it has to do with nutrition. And that's why I have them do that kind of nutrition intake. So I can really see like, what are you eating? Are you maybe dealing with a lot of gut issues and you're eating gluten? Well, gluten, we know, causes leaky gut in about 5 minutes. So that could be an opportunity for healing. Are we eating a whole bunch of seed oils and junk food and sugar and alcohol every single day or 4 or 5 times a week or even 2 or 3 times a week? And we're trying to heal our gut or support our thyroid. Okay, we got to address those things. So what needs to get taken out that's inflammatory? That's like one question. And then what needs to get added in? So does this person need to eat more vegetables? Does this person need to eat more protein? I mean, the amount of people that are under eating protein and under eating fiber, I mean, just fixing that alone will help restore so much for the gut. We know that the gut thrives on different types of prebiotic fibers. So I'll often go through with them. I have this functional fiber chart where I go through like, there's all these different types of fiber. Try to get one from each category throughout the week. So because I find that most people eat the same things. So we're just trying to like start to slowly say, maybe you eat one new type of vegetable per week. Okay. And so what needs to be removed? What needs to be added in to fuel the body, to fuel the gut, to fuel the thyroid, whatever it is the person, maybe it's for fertility, like what needs to be added in there, what needs to be removed. And so, yeah, I do start with nutrition. If the person's going to work with me on it, I try to screen for that and make sure that people are good, with doing that. And then when I get the labs, that's when we really customize that supplement plan. So, okay, now I have your hair test. I can see you're low in these 7 minerals. And here is I actually create a custom compounded, like bespoke mineral blend from a company called Vicon, Vykon. And what I love about them is that you can put all your nutrients in one, because supplement overwhelm is a real thing. And so I really love, I can put like liver nutrients in there. I can put B vitamins. I can put all the minerals that the person needs into this one blend. And then they just mix it with water and juice twice a day. And it's just so much more convenient than like 17 pill bottles. It just gets exhausting. And then of course, if that person decides to run a GI test with us, then once they're eating well, they're sleeping well, they're moving their body in a way that works, they're prioritizing sunlight, they're kind of doing those blood sugar, like all the baseline fundamental things that they're working on while we're waiting for the labs to come in. Then they get on the minerals, they start like feeling better with their energy, and then we'll do the gut protocol, because at least that's what I try to do. Sometimes it doesn't always work out that way, but people are trying to detox or do stuff with their gut before their body's really ready. So I see that backfire often. So we want to actually like prep the body up and really fuel it. And I call it my thriving thyroid method. So it's like nourishment, and then we do detox or release. And so then we'll kind of clean up the gut and make sure that the gut is functioning well, so that there's not that immune system fire happening.
Right. Love it. Love it. One thing that you mentioned in the beginning, Sophie, was that thyroid issues are more common in women than men. Could you shed some light on that? Why is it that women are struggling with this issue more?
Ooh, okay. Well, how philosophical can I get?
As much as you want.
Okay. Because I think there's several ways that I could answer this. And I something we haven't touched upon is that I've done 2 years with the subconscious mind of training about mindset, limiting beliefs, our processing things that have happened before we were even aware, like from age 0 to 7, how we interpret the world and the filters that we have in the world. And so I think I'll start with like the emotional piece, and then I'll talk about the physiological pieces. So women who come to me with thyroid conditions tend to have similar mental patterns and beliefs. I'm not enough. It's better to be seen and not heard. Or some version of like, don't use your voice in some way, or their voice has been suppressed in some way. Maybe there's been abuse, or maybe there's just been this general feeling that it's unsafe to be their full selves and be in their full expression. A lot of the women are also dealing with perfectionism and people pleasing as a mechanism to keep them safe and keep themselves loved and in connection with others. So there is a lot there. I think that we also need to work on, and that is something. I do have a somatic coach, nervous system coach on my team. I do that work too, but she's just incredible. So I let her do that. And we do actually integrate that into our group calls and into our one-to-one, where we're really looking at every edge and angle, and not just like supplements and food, because a lot of times people will like exhaust themselves into this like stress depletion pattern that impacts the thyroid just because of like their mental patterns and like their inability to release emotions, because no one's ever taught them that like how to safely feel anger or how to safely feel sadness or grief. Like we don't talk about that as a society. We just push it down. Well, guess what happens when we push emotions down? They stay in the body, right? The body keeps the score. It's an incredibly famous book. It's not like pseudoscience, right? The way that this works is that when we're having a thought that is a detrimental thought, it is eliciting a stress response in the body. We are releasing stress hormones. We're releasing adrenaline and cortisol. Well, the thyroid is very sensitive to stress. So if we want to bring it to like, why do I think women are more likely to develop a thyroid condition than men? Think about how critical women are on themselves. Women tend to go inward, men tend to go outward with their stress. Okay. And I'm not, shaming either direction. It's just something that I've noticed that is happening. And so if we're going inward and we're keeping all this stress inside and we're pushing it down and we're releasing adrenaline and cortisol all the time, that is hammering at the thyroid. There's a marker we can look at in blood work called reverse T3. It is called, I call it the brakes. Why do the brakes go on the thyroid, slow everything down? Stressors. And yes, that can be gluten exposure and heavy metals and mold and gut things. Absolutely. And that's why we address that too. But it's also mental and emotional stressors that keep the body stuck in chronic fight or flight or freeze that really contracts the nervous system and then suppresses the thyroid. So that is one of the biggest things that I hope every woman who comes through She Thrives Thyroid Freedom understands by the time they're done and has those tools and resources to address. And and I have a ton of other physiological things I can talk about.
yeah. Like that's actually what I was going to ask. Like the somatic nervous system, that sounds really interesting. And I have very limited knowledge, Sophie, but I've heard of these things you can do to release stress. Like basically, like that there are like these zones where stress can literally be stuck in our body, and there's ways that we can release it. I was wondering, can you guide us and shed some light on the somatic nervous system healing process? And what are like the sneak peeks into what can someone be experiencing in the aftermath of these sessions?
Can you say this question one more time?
Yeah, 100%. Basically, when we said somatic nervous system and how we can help women, I guess, reverse those effects of years of bottling the stress, right? What happens in these sessions? I guess, like you were mentioning, and your friend is an expert at it. What is happening in these healing sessions?
Yeah, that's a great question. Okay, so I'm trying to just figure out the best way to describe this because there's so many tools within these modalities, right? So first and foremost, our nervous system, we want to try, oftentimes people feel unsafe in their system, or they have a belief that their body will never heal, or they feel just like this distrust in their system or this dysregulation. And you can kind of understand if your nervous system is heightened by certain things. So maybe you're breathing through your mouth, or you're shallow breathing and your chest, like that. That's a sign, right? Maybe your hands are like shaking, or maybe you're more in the full like shutdown phase where you're more flat and you're like not really able to like kind of get up and go and have that energetic expression. So that's the first thing, is just understanding in these sessions, where is someone at, and helping them understand themselves. And that's critical, right? It's like, hey, what am I feeling in my body? That is somatics, right? Somatics is of the body. And so inside of somatics, what people are working on is like noticing where the stress is living in the body. Is there tension in the chest? Is there shallow breathing, all the jaw clenching? And then how to really connect with those expressions and even just witness them and be present to them. It doesn't always have to be that we're like trying to like change ourselves or fix ourselves. Actually, I think that is kind of like an elevated response that can sometimes almost be detrimental, right? But actually just witnessing ourselves, holding ourselves through that is hugely powerful. And then with the nervous system, there are also things that can help stabilize the system. So there is like vagus nerve toning, and you've probably heard of these things like humming, cold exposure, breath work. Those are tools, and I love those tools. And the deeper work is that connection to yourself. And also in the world, the other side of this world is the subconscious wiring. So what are the ingrained beliefs that you have? Is your body broken? You'll never feel well. I just have to push through. Oh, I'll just prioritize everyone else except for myself. What are those beliefs that are keeping the nervous system in survival mode or having more stress expression. And so when we do these sessions, it's like we're really trying to help people come home to themselves. Sometimes it's clearing those subconscious beliefs. Like if it's a belief, then it's not a fact, right? So how can we support you in rewiring that? And then there's many modalities within that. There's something called quantum time technique, which is adjacent, similar to EMDR, where we go back in someone's timeline to when they first learned that belief, and we help them rewire and be resourced in themselves so that they can think about that event in a different way, and that elicits a different emotional response in the body. There's all sorts of techniques and tools. So it really just kind of is up to the practitioner in terms of like, what is this person telling you is going on? And what do they need? Do they need to connect to their body? Do they need to rewire a subconscious belief? Do they need tools in their body to feel safe? What is the modality that's going to help? So it really depends. And so there's a lot that can happen. There's a lot of emotional release sometimes, which is always interesting because I think people will cry and then they'll feel guilty or something. They're like, oh, I'm so sorry, I'm crying. And so, it's okay. It's okay to have emotions. Yeah. And so that's kind of a sense of how those sessions go, and releasing emotions, rewiring beliefs, feeling safe in the body, those types of things.
Yeah, it's so interesting because sometimes like I mean, it's TMI, but sometimes it's like out of nowhere, if things are super stressed and I just cry it out, sometimes it's a little cathartic. It's like, all right, dude, I was able to like release this just this buildup of stress. Yes. And I feel like that's what like I think experts are kind of prompting us to do, which is like whatever we can do to release stress. Because I guess in my life I've been very privileged that there hasn't been that much I guess like stress of like me having to bottle things up. So I never felt like, okay, I have to speak to someone to kind of go within the history of my life and figure out how I can kind of rewire things. But like sometimes in the hustle and bustle of life, stress definitely plays a factor. And it's when you kind of get that healthy release, and more importantly, the permission to like just like do something to kind of just get yourself out of that, I guess like a flight or fright, fight or flight. Then it's like you feel better.
Yeah. And I think it's important to know that release is okay. And like being present and witness to your body and its own expressions and being okay with however that comes out is also part of it, because I think we're in a society of quick fixes and trying to like feel the relief. I need to feel the relief right away. Like, help me. Sure. And so that can be a really helpful tool depending on what's going on for the person. But it's also like getting to be okay with all of you, the fullest expression of yourself.
Absolutely. I think that's a huge point to touch, Sophie, because especially now with this advent of digestive issues and even thyroid related issues, it's our inclination to embrace the short-term fixes over finding the long-term things that really kind of puts us in these vicious cycles of not feeling relief for years and even decades, right?
Yes. I just was on a coaching call right before this podcast, and we were just talking about how healing isn't linear and it's not a quick fix, and that's not what I offer, but it's worth it if you stick through it and you go through the ups and downs and you have guidance and you get the testing and you do this inner work, because on the other side of it, it's like the biggest personal transformation that you'll ever have. And then who do you want to be in this world, right? Do you want to be the person that's like, oh, quick fix? Or do you want to be the person that has full, true transformation?
Absolutely. And one big thing you're big on is this idea of sustainable healing, right? I was thinking about it, like when you have parted ways with a client saying, okay, you're good now. We've checked off the boxes. We know what were the core issues and we figured out a way to solve them. When they go about their way, what are like the parting words that you have to them to ensure that they stay aligned towards their healing journey, right? Because sometimes we, like after a great, like for example, my aunt, right? She went on this health retreat, And it was where she did like these great juice cleanses, fasts, a lot of mindfulness, breath work, and she really developed a great relationship with food. And when she came back to New York, she got like again thrown into the hustle and bustle of life. She runs a preschool. Things are a little like all crazy, and it's very easy to just kind of jump back into your default ways of handling stress. What are the things that you feel are the number, like maybe like the top three things we should keep in mind as men and women to ensure we are supporting our thyroid health and our overall health? Like, yeah,
Ooh.
like just stress management as well.
Yeah, that's a big question. I'm like, how much time do we have? I mean, I think part of it is understanding what's true for you. I think that's like the most important thing because what works for you will not work for me. And so even with stress management, right? It's like what are the things that help you manage stress? Maybe like going to a golf range and doing that is like the stress reliever, or maybe it's like going to a yoga class or talking to a friend or finding something that brings you joy and laughter and dance and singing, right? So there's that part. And that's also to do with supplements and food. Everyone's food choices, everyone's supplements are going to be different. Everyone's, those things. But I think if I were to like, I guess, come back to foundations, right? Like, what are some of the things I would be looking at? It's like, do you wake up and put your eyes in the sun? Do you get your feet in the ground? Like grounding and being with the earth, sunlight, super important. Are you moving your body? Like, are you walking, going for walks, a couple, maybe an hour a day or a few 20-minute walks a day? Or, are you lifting things? Are you picking up weights, right? Like that is incredibly important for our metabolic health, especially over 30 for men and for women. When we start to lose muscle mass if we don't use it, right? So, and we know that more muscle we have, the more metabolically healthy we will be, right? We'll be more likely to maintain our weight and our posture and our bone health. So like simple things. And then like, are we generally eating a whole foods diet, right? Like is 90% or 80% of each plate mostly whole foods, organic, ideally, grass-fed, pasture-raised. If you're living in this country, I am so sorry. I know they're more expensive, but that's the deal. That's a whole other podcast, but good quality whole foods. It's not that I never have a snack or a sweet treat or something like that, but most of my diet is like whole food things that I know all the ingredients and I can pronounce them, right? Am I sleeping? Did you get some good rest? 8 hours, 7 to 9 hours, right, of rest? And are you doing the things that help you find safety, regulation, calm in your system? So those are just like baseline things. And then I think from there's the individualization of like, some people like really have a lot of gut work to do. And that's like something that they need to retest, or something that doesn't get solved in the first 4 or 6 months. And that's okay. And then maybe we need to do a deeper dive. Or maybe there's maintenance things like probiotics or gut lining support or minerals. I mean, minerals are basically the only thing that I have everyone continue to retest and get their new blends on, because it is just keeps people like feeling good. So things like that, I think that's where we have to just come back to the basics and not make it so complicated with health.
Yes, 100%. And I guess as a final question, Sophie, I wanted to ask, is there anything I haven't asked about what we need and should know when it comes to optimizing our thyroid and gut health?
No, I think you covered, I guess, I think you covered everything. And I feel like I said this, but at the beginning I said test and don't guess. I wish that someone had intervened earlier, because I don't think I would have Hashimoto's if someone had said, hey,
Wow.
go get a test. And I know it's expensive to test. It's not covered by insurance. And so that brings up a lot. And, coaching's not covered by insurance. But like, what if you were to know that this one-time investment would set you up for the rest of your life? Wouldn't that be worth it? Like, wouldn't it be worth it just to feel better sooner than to drag it out? Like, I really wish someone had said when I was 16, you don't just have IBS, you have parasites and Candida and bacteria and a leaky gut, and you can fix it, but no one did that. So I suffered, and it got worse and worse and worse, and more inflammation and more immune system dysregulation until at 22, my hair's falling out, I'm depressed, and I'm exhausted, and I have no idea who I've become. I don't want people to wait until that they get to that place. You don't have to have chronic conditions to test. Everyone can do an HTMA with me. Everyone can do a GI map. Anyone who wants to get blood work can do that, right? So being in charge of your health means thinking critically about what you actually are willing to participate in. And I really believe that like forward action and getting ahead of it and testing and not guessing is critical. And I wouldn't like say it if I didn't believe that to be true.
Love it, love it. And Sophie, as a final note, if someone were watching this amazing conversation and they are a bit discouraged with the gut issues and overall health issues that they are struggling with, what's the final message you'd love to give them?
Mm, Trust yourself. Trust yourself. You can get support. You can do this. This is not unsolvable. Everything has a solution, and it can be solved. And it may not be a straight line, and it may take a little bit of time and effort, but it's possible to solve. Because if I can solve the fact that I couldn't even drink water without pain, then you can do this. I promise.
Love it. Sophie, thank you so much. Where can people find you and hopefully work with you and learn from you?
Yeah, so everything is She Talks Health. So I have the podcast. If you want to binge that, we have almost, I think, 160 episodes now. So it goes back 5 years. You can do that. If you want to work with me, you can go to shetalkshealth.com/call, and we can have a 30-minute free introductory call. You can tell me what's going on with your health, and I'll share with you what I think. And I also definitely have some free gifts for people, so I can send those over. I have a free constipation guide if that's your gut issue that you're dealing with. And I also have a how to stop playing whack-a-mole with your thyroid video. That's a free video of like really getting clear and getting answers if you are suffering with thyroid. So I'll send those over to you if you're at all interested.
Love it. Sophie, thank you so much for all your amazing guidance. I think the main thing we really learned is don't wait for solutions. Have a little urgency, and you have to understand that you are the one who has to get yourself out of whatever situation you're in. And that means taking initiative for testing and taking initiative to seeking out healers like yourself to streamline our road to healing. So Sophie, thank you so much. I'm so excited to see all the lives you change in the next years, decades, and I'm rooting for you. Thank you
Thank
so
you so
much
much.
for all your time.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Thank you.